Hello everybody. We are super excited to be here, and we already had the opportunity to experience some great talks this week, and we're really looking forward to sharing some of our work today, which might be concerning a slightly different area which you have heard this week. We will be talking about the value that design can deliver to audio, hard and software, and how it can be integrated into the overarching development process. We're going to try to avoid giving you a deep theoretical lecture about design, and we're going to try to kind of focus on really tangible learnings we made over the past years, which you might be able to use in your daily work. But first, let us quickly introduce ourselves.
So hello everyone, I am Vanessa, I'm a sound engineer from Colombia. I've worked in different fields of the audio industry, acoustics, live sound, and mainly in the design and development of audio functionalities for hearing impaired at Sonova for 9 years. And I also, as a side projects, I do development for wireless interactive sound systems for artistic performances and installations. Now working as a UX and audio design specialist at Notation, can bring this experience in the audio field and empathize better with the user needs and also create a stronger link with the design and implementation teams.
I'm Alexander, as mentioned, design manager at Notation Creative, and I have a background in product design and marketing management. And I used to be, before I joined Notation, a part of the global brand and design management team at Sennheiser. So let me quickly also introduce Notation to you. We are an independent design agency that originated from the global brand and design management team at Sennheiser. And therefore, we have a really strong heritage and focus in the audio industry. Today, we are really fortunate to be able to help various companies around the world to create desirable products and services. And our team at the moment consists of industrial and user experience designers, researchers, strategists, and engineers. And we're all based in the beautiful city of Zurich in Switzerland. So we'll start by showing you some insights from how we design physical product experiences. And with some of many of our clients that we have worked with in the past, design is kind of one of the tasks to be done on a product level. It happens that development teams don't talk to each other and kind of work a little bit in silos, especially when it comes to the design of their products. This will inevitably lead to inconsistency and will not just frustrate and confuse your users, but also kind of block you from becoming a recognized and trusted brand, and ultimately block you from being successful in the market. So what you want are, sorry about that. So what you want are overarching design principles, basically guidelines, how your products and services should look and feel, and what are the do's and don'ts while using them. This will enable consistency across your portfolio, and your teams and partners will be able to focus on creating great products that pay into the overall brand awareness and eventually lead to happy users. Our first example, which we would like to show today, is an example for which we were approached by Sennheiser. And the task was to modernize and improve one of the interfaces of their audio receivers. This was one of the entry-level audio receivers they had quite a while back. And before diving into this task, we wanted to talk to and observe some of the users who work with these in their daily life. So first of all, hands up for anybody who has worked with a similar device like this before. A few of you, nice. So this was one of the many insights we gathered during these interviews, and I'm sure you are aware of this, that some people, especially really professional users, have huge responsibilities when using these devices. So if they potentially push the wrong button at the wrong time, let's say, potentially thousands, maybe even millions of viewers might not have any sound to whatever they're watching. So the pressure on us was definitely on to create an interface which was fully optimized to how these professionals work, and that it would kind of seamlessly integrate in their work process. And we also identified that a lot of people tend to mix and match different devices together. So without just focusing on this single device, we kind of said we want to look at the entire portfolio first. And that was how it looked at that time. As you can see, there weren't like overarching principles and how the interfaces should look and feel were kind of missing. There was a bit of a inside-out approach of where technologies and features were kind of translated into color codes and special interface details, and we just figured out that the users, in most cases, didn't understand them. But much more, it actually led to frustration, because let's say you get used to one device and then you upgrade to another, and you basically have to learn the entire interface from scratch. And the argument was, funny enough, along the way, was always, well, these are professional users. They're used to like super complex interfaces. They can totally handle these devices. And we totally agree, of course, but at the same time, I'm sure you guys don't mind when things are easy. So as requested, we redesigned and modernized this first receiver. And at the same time, we kind of wanted to show how the principles that we developed for this one device would apply to the entire portfolio. And that's basically what we presented at that time. We added a differentiation between professional and entry-level devices. And together with an updated interface, we provided a better orientation and usability of the devices while being consistent within the portfolio and also being, let's say, more differentiating within the market. But what struck us above all that is that these principles started to accelerate the development process, because the individual teams didn't have to develop their devices from scratch each time. And the product managers kind of knew that design will not cause them or their users any headache along the way. But what struck me the most was that these principles became kind of a driver for customer loyalty. Because let's say you start off with your school band, you have your very first entry-level receiver, and then over time you might be you start to earn money with that band, and you want to kind of upgrade your gear. And chances are, if that device didn't disappoint, that you would get another Sennheiser device. And here, there's basically two ways you can go. So let's say I unpack that device and I have to learn that interface from scratch. That's kind of a frustrating moment as a user. However, if I unpack that device and I just intuitively know how to use it, even though it's a higher level device, that's like a kind of a magic moment, yeah? And that's also a driver exactly for that customer loyalty and satisfaction. So I promised you some tangible examples which you might be able to use in your daily life. And I want to use this receiver as an example how we develop these principles. So first, what you want to try to do is remove all unnecessary distractions and use a simple base shape for your interface. Don't worry, there's going to be more complexity coming along the way anyway. In our case, we started with one frameless flat cover, no separations, no color patterns, no decorations on it. Then, by using the same corner radius overall, we created a clean base shape, which we later incorporated into the overarching principles of the brand, and now acts like a stage for the Sennheiser brand across various products. Now, when you're planning your interface, choose a layout that allows a high flexibility and can be easily scaled across different devices and give the user a clear orientation. We separated ours into three main areas. So on the left, you can see the display area. This is kind of reserved for anything that we want to show to the user. In our case, or in most cases, this will be a screen. The middle section is where, in our device, the main control element was lying. And on the right side, you have like secondary control elements, such as a power button, for example. Now, let's talk about buttons and knobs. So the main interaction interface the user will have with your device are buttons and knobs. Of course, if you don't have a touch screen. So they have to be super nice. So align on what kind of buttons you want to use and how you want to label them across all your devices. This way, you'll not just benefit from bulk discounts when sourcing them, but you'll be able to afford maybe the extra nice ones. And on our case, after several rounds of user testing, we decided that we're going to go for round buttons, which are all axis symmetric. This was just kind of the most intuitive way that they thought to lay out the front, and it also kind of paid into that clean look of the interface. If you show your screen too prominently, it can happen that your device will look outdated really fast, because the screens today are strong indicators of how old the device is, as screen technologies are evolving pretty fast. So what we did, we kind of hid our screen behind this front black acrylic plate, and set all font colors across all devices to white, and removed the screen frame. This allowed Sennheiser to easily exchange screens of their products, if that was needed at some point, without changing the entire design of the product. So with these principles, we offered a system that enabled Sennheiser to create simple and timeless-looking interfaces while empowering developers within the company to drive consistency and reduce development time and cost. So now Vanessa will show you an example of a scalable design system for digital experiences.
So in digital design system, the goal is the same as we have seen in the example of the physical product design. And is create a consistent user experience through all different digital touchpoints, reduce the time of the development and costs, and strengthen the brand recognitions. This includes mobile or standalone applications, BST, but also the website and the online shops. So a scalable design system is basically a classification of components, like simple tools and assets that the development teams can easily implement. One example of the implementation of this design system is the Smart Control app, which is a companion app for all Sennheiser consumer products. This includes earbuds and over-the-ear headphones and soundbars. So for us, the Smart Control app is just not a single app project, but rather an ecosystem, where the scalable architecture of this design system allows the easy integration of the legacy product, the current products, and scales for unknown future products. To ensure that the user and the brand experience is consistent both in digital and physical products, we created a man-machine interaction library, where all the user commands and the corresponding feedback, like sound prompts or light indications, are stored. These help us prototype and design user experience for products that not only look and feel like members of the same family, but also speak the same language through the whole portfolio. So this was an example on how we approach digital design systems in a holistic way, not only ensuring to create great experiences for end users, but also to support the work of developers, which is for us is also users. So this is a little bit overarching strategy of design, but how this is implemented in a project base. I will talk about the design development process. We start this design process strategically defining what we want to build. So it's build the right thing. To do this, first we create a deep understanding on the user, their needs, the context of use, their goals, the pain point with the current solutions. We use surveys, interviews, observation, and desk research with the idea or the goal to identify the user groups and their scenarios. Then we translate this research into user requirements. These user requirements refer for other type of requirements in the way they are formulated. For example, the user should be able to quickly access the input gain control. This is about the what and not about the how. So now that we know what to build, the next step is about doing, so building the thing right. This is an iterative process that flips back and forth between the designing, the refining, the testing, and the learning. In this phase, we work close together with the technical development team. The idea is to map out the system behavior, which includes all the human-computer interaction decisions. This is about what controls should I give to the user, in which form, is a slider, is a knob, and how is the mapping of the functionalities into these controls? Is like one or multiple parameters, and also are continuous or discrete. What about presets or default values? How is the system feedback? Is about sound, haptics, lights. And what is the minimum information that the user needs to understand how to use our product? So all these are questions that we think and make the design concepts. We iteratively challenge these design concepts through user experience evaluation or user testing. And we use rapid prototyping to validate these concepts with the users. And we're talking about audio products. So the idea to validate this research is also having a functional prototype, something that the user could experience and have really more meaningful feedback about our design concepts. So we test different design variants, and also we can test technical limitations that could impact the user experience. For example, if I have 2 milliseconds delay or 8 milliseconds delay, what is the threshold of acceptance for the user to use our product? This is where hearing performance and UX merge. So UX is not all about beautifying and making things easily. It's also about how, as human, we perceive all the products as a whole system. So using a user-oriented process will help us to take a better design decisions, because we engineers and designers would try to create products that will bring value and joy to the users. Once we come up with a solution that fulfills the user needs, the technical requirements, and the brand strategy, we move forward to the implementation phase. So ideally, we will follow this design process, but this is not how the industry works. Most of the cases, products are designed based on the technology and not on the user needs. So we, most of the time, have requests to make it more user-friendly, so in the development phase and not exploration phase. And this, sometimes people think that it's about beautifying the user interface, but this is not UX. I truly believe that an early implementation of user-centered design processes and close collaboration with the functional development teams is a key factor for the creation of great and unique sound experiences. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up the point of actually having a functional prototype that you can kind of touch and hear when you're dealing with audio. And I'm just curious if you kind of have had any observations or experience with the development iterative process kind of getting stuck on just the paper prototypes or like click-through prototypes where you might test that, get positive feedback and assume it's good enough, and all of a sudden the development team gets going and kind of skips that functional prototype phase. And if you have any advice about kind of encouraging, making sure you don't do that and just not just get stuck on your first thing to kind of pass the click-through prototype phase.
So, sorry, I didn't get the question. So it's about the error messages or how it's...
When you mentioned the importance of functional prototypes, not just, paper prototypes or click-throughs, do you have any thoughts on kind of how to encourage that attitude versus just kind of getting stuck on assuming, oh, if the paper prototype tests well, let's just go build it?
Yeah, I think this is also part of how the prototyping tools works and the methods we use to rapidly have these experiences. No, so it's the fidelity. Of course, is easy if you draw it and you have just a slider. But of course, the risk of having troubles because you use this fidelity of prototyping is higher. So you need to make the right decision at the right point. And yeah, I think now there is a lot of tools where you can use to make this process more fast. And this will, of course, increase the outcome.
Thanks.
Do you have any thoughts or comments about sound as a design element and how to incorporate that and positive, negatives that we've seen?
Yeah, well, are you referring to user or sound feedback of the... This is just one part of the process. So, for example, I see sound when I do these prototypes. So one is the background. So you will always have like a background, an ambient noise. Then you have the functional parts of the system. What is like your stimulus, your sound, stimulus. And the other part is the functional part. What is your device doing? How is the modifying part? And the feedback, like what kind of sounds, like how you design the sounds so you can inform the user what is the situation, what is the system doing, or what is the user interaction doing. So I see this as part of the elements of the designing the whole sound experience.
Maybe I can also add something here. I also, because we had a project last year where the task was exactly to design sound feedbacks for multiple devices within a portfolio. And we just identified that, especially in audio devices, audio products, it's a super important detail to communicate what your brand's about. Because very often people invest tons of money to kind of design the actual product, and then they kind of take the standard sound prompts, which came with a chip, let's say, and then you have a super high-end feeling headphone, let's say, but the sounds are just like really standard and don't really match with the design. So that's also something that we really try to push through, is that these sounds are also designed together with the entire experience.
Can you give an example of the time frame of those different phases, so of automation, iteration, and then...
Yeah, this of course depends from project to project, and we know the industry, everything has to be super fast. So yeah, if we have, sometimes you have projects when you have longer times, and then you have to prioritize what is the research questions, what is the minimum problems that you want to solve, prioritize them, and then start from that to develop your design. And if you have longer times where you can really explore all the different aspects of the interaction and the design, then of course you can guarantee a better product at the end, but this is not how it works normally.
Yeah, and this is also the process that we show today is obviously like, let's say, the foundation book way to do it, yeah, but we also, with each project, we kind of customize that process to the requirements of what's needed and put prioritization on different phases.
A question from Zoom. How can an audio software developer incorporate user feedback during the prototyping stage?
Well, I use Max MSP a lot, so I just do like these microphones, sound files, and yeah, I think for me that's an easy way of integrating and doing prototypes for user testing.
Do you have any advice for designing products where the user hasn't used that certain type of product before, so something that doesn't quite exist in the market, so you really try to identify what type of user you really have?
Yeah, so I think that's two things. So one is you have an idea and you implement the things and then try to find out who will use it. And that's a different approach than instead of going and understanding the environment and see now these are the needs of the user in this context. These are the personas, the user groups, and how can I just develop or redesign my implementation so it work in these scenarios with these user groups. So there's different ways of seeing.
Hi, yeah. I had some questions to do with the tool you demonstrated, Airtable, for plotting out user workflows. So sort of like two-part question with that. Have you used that sort of wealth of information to apply towards quality assurance and, basically like, translating all that information into practical tests? And also, given that you could, given the context of trying to create ecosystems between multiple products, have you managed to use that tool to sort of like assess your amount of overlap in, for want of a better tool, sort of like user language for how to interact with your products?
Yeah, we use Airtable just to contain everything, like all the different products, how is the interaction. So we can easily visualize the patterns and visualize how is the language of the device and how can this also escalate to the whole portfolio, that everything feels a little bit in the same language. So that helps us a lot to get this process done.
Yeah, and it was an essential tool, especially in the project where we developed those overarching sound prompts, because the sounds that we developed were covering, I think it was about 15 different products, and inside those different categories. So we had to know, like, turning on the device works in 5 different ways across all categories and is triggered by 3 different gestures, with sometimes a button, sometimes a slider, sometimes a click of the headphone. And you kind of have to visualize that in front of you to understand what is the right sound for that interaction to cover all scenarios. And for that, you obviously need that kind of overview.
With the hardware example you showed and the kind of old gear that all look different, do you feel that was a coincidence or a desire to actually make every device unique?
I don't think as like an overarching idea that they said, we want all our devices to look different, but I think it was just different product teams working on different products, and they just said, oh, we developed this really cool feature and we want to visualize it in some way on our interface without looking at the other devices. And that's how this, let's say, a little bit of a mess up happens. But that's like super normal in various categories that happens.
Oh yeah, we went through that as well, so that's why I was wondering. Thanks.
Yeah.
And we have time for a final question.
Have you ever incorporated auditory display or like sonification in any of the interfaces?
Not that I am aware of, like...
I don't understand the question, so...
No, I understand it, but not real-time sonification.
Yeah, using like sonic feedback to like tell the user like where they are or like how loud something is. So
Right. Yeah, I mean, yes. So one example is maybe when it comes to, let's say you have a headphone, and a lot of the newer headphones now have a touch surface on the side to kind of interact with them. And when you slide up, you kind of adjust the volume. And with that, it's not just a toc, 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 but it's like even that sound prompt increases in noise, in volume. So if there's nothing playing on the headphone, you still have an idea of how loud the headphone is actually getting. So that's maybe something that you're looking for, kind of.
Well, that's all the time we had for the questions. Thank you very much for
Thank you
your
very much.
presentation.
Thank you.